The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. This is the United Podcast Network.
The following program is closed captioned for the thinking impaired.
By tomorrow, I will rule the world!
You think he's gone? He's not gone. That's the whole point. He's never gone.
Is this some radical new therapy?
You see?
Well, I must have not been paying attention when you were just talking to me. Do you think that you could repeat the question?
I don't know, do we make him do the Bapa Paz? It's so undignified, I almost want to do it now. I almost want to make him do it.
Must have been something in all of that.
Give him a break.
Yeah, I guess so.
Give him a break.
He said my smoking doesn't bother him, so I might have to actually vote for the guy now. I'm pulling a Democrat ballot. Although I really want to pull a Republican ballot. I'm an independent.
We'll do that in the final. I need the Democratic vote in September. That's it, one way or the other.
Yeah. Well, I want to vote in the Republican governor's race, but I have so many Democrats I'm supporting in the primary that I'm like this. I think I'm going to have to pull a Democrat. All right, let's get this show on the road, shall we?
Yeah.
Hi, how you guys doing? My name's Tom Duggan here at the Paying Attention Podcast. Hi atop Two Guys Smoke Shop at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. I want to thank our sponsors before we do anything at all. I want to thank our sponsors, McLennan Real Estate, Century 21, Lazy River Products, and Drake. You know, you're all worked up about, we've lost our rights, Roe v. Wade's been overturned, the gas prices are too high, what are we going to do? Everybody's all stressed out, running around, driving each other off the road. Go to Lazy River Products and Drake it. Get yourself some cannabis. Everything's going to be okay. Marsan and Son Construction. This is the time to get your construction done. You don't want to wait till fall because everybody waits till fall. You want to call Marsan and Son Construction now and book whatever construction needs you have for the fall. EIS, Investigation and Gun Training. Borelli's Deli, where I get my hot sausages right after that. You've been to Borelli's Deli,
Yes,
right,
I have.
Sheriff?
Yes, I have.
What is your favorite thing there?
Sausage,
Right?
I'm just a basic sausage guy. Not the fancy basic sausage.
Me
Peppers
too,
and onions,
me
that's
too. Tomo and Shaken Seafood right down on South Broadway in Salem, New Hampshire. Free shout out to Clear Path New England, Clear Path for Veterans New England, AFC Urgent Care. We love Lisa and Tom and everybody over at AFC Urgent Care. Pleasant Valley Landscaping, Dave Idconsoli. Maybe we'll have Dave Idconsoli come in for the last show before the election when we do our pre-election show.
Oh, there you go.
Maybe he's the guy, because I'm looking to have like somebody come in and just kind of like banter with and go over all the candidates. And who else did we leave? We want to say a free shout out to JG's Ice Cream. We love them. And I want to let you know that on in August, see my lips get ahead of my brain.
That happens.
And then you don't ever know what's going to happen. On August 25th, we're going to have the state Senate debate for Lawrence and Methuen. It's Lawrence, Methuen, Haverhill, I think. Pavel Payano, Eunice Ziegler, and Doris Rodriguez are going to be here at 3:30. We have already 4 sponsors for this debate. AFC Urgent Care, Francisco Polino, candidate for state representative, Marcos Devers, candidate for state representative, and Estela Reyes, candidate for state representative. And if you'd like to sponsor our debate that night, please reach out to me on Facebook. Email me at valleypatriot@aol.com. It's going to be a good debate, and it's going to be the only debate in that race. Now, I know nothing against MCTV and Methuen, but what they do, they call a debate. It's not a debate. It's a forum. You can't say to somebody, how are you going to solve world peace in 30 seconds? That doesn't work in the real world, right? So this is going to be a real debate where we'll have the 3 candidates here, excuse me. I will throw out a topic and say, what do you think about the Roe v. Wade decision? And then let them talk to each other. I'll completely set back and let you see how they work with each other, how they agree, how they disagree, how they handle the situation, because that's what you need to know when you're looking for somebody to vote for. In the studio with me today, I think this is his 3rd appearance. It might even be his 4th, right? Kevin Carpenter, he's the Essex County Sheriff. We did some great debates the year that you ran.
We did.
We had, 9 candidates?
13 total.
13 candidates we had up on stage at North Andover High School. We had like 40 sponsors for that. Oh, my God, it was ridiculous. And of all of those candidates, the one guy that emerged, he was like the phoenix from the ashes. Kevin Carpenter was victorious in that election, and we have him here. When he called me and he said, I'd like to come on the show and I'd like to get some ads in the paper, I said, are you going to be endorsing somebody? Is that like why you're coming on? He said, no, I'm running. And I thought, oh my God, I didn't even realize he was running this year. But I know that you do have an opponent, and I know she's working Lawrence very hard. Jackie Marmo's supporting her. Otherwise, I never would have known about it. When you first start with, tell people who you are, a little bit about yourself, your background and stuff, and then we'll ask like the political questions.
Sure. Well, first of all, Tom, thank you for the invite. It's always fun to come up and
Love having you
chat
here.
with you, and it's always entertaining, and your show's always entertaining.
Thank you.
My career basically is I was a police officer in actually the town of Lynnfield for 3 years. Then I transferred over to the city of Lynn, where I was born and brought up, and I still reside. 32 years with the Lynn Police Department, the last 7 as chief of police. And then in 2016, then Sheriff Frank Cousins decided to retire. He announced his retirement, and a few friends said, "Hey, Kevin, you'd make a great sheriff." And originally I said, "No, thank you." And I thought about it, and I called Sheriff Cousins. I went up. Can I come up for 20 minutes and talk to you, Frank? He said, "Sure." 3.5 hours later, I walked out of there. I can do this, and I threw my name in the hat, my hat in the ring. And it was, as you said, it was an eventful campaign.
It was a very spirited primary.
That's a good way to put it. Very spirited.
It was tough. That was a tough primary.
It was. But, my background, I got a master's degree in criminal justice. I went to the FBI National Academy in Quantico, Virginia for 3 months, which is very unique. Only 1% of law enforcement in the country get to go to that, and I was the first person out of Lynn PD to go to that. So I've got a lot of experience, a lot of expertise in the criminal justice background. Jumped into corrections in 2017 when I got sworn in inauguration, and we've hit the ground running, including the 2 years of COVID when the world was shut down. But I just remind everybody that it didn't shut down for us. We've got a lot of inmates to watch. And
how did you handle that? How did you handle? It never even dawned on me when everything was shut down, COVID, everybody has to wear masks, vaccines, how do you social distance in a prison, right? It never even dawned on me like how difficult a job you must have had trying to keep everybody safe inside your prison. I mean, that's a tough job to begin with without COVID, and then adding COVID into that equation.
Yeah, it was a huge task, and even with the whole world, it came on us so fast and quick, we didn't really know what to do. So I'm kind of a research guy. I was watching the CDC. I actually had the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Mary Lou Summers, on speed dial.
Hopefully you didn't believe anything any of them said.
Well, I had to take everything for granted and figure out what's fact and what's fiction. Right. And that's what I do in the law enforcement world anyway, because Essex County at the time was the largest jail and house of correction in Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. We've since dropped Suffolk County, so it's bigger, but we average right now about 1,150 inmates. At the time COVID hit, we were around just shy of 1,500. And it's an older facility, so we had to deal with it. And we did have outbreaks of COVID. I'm not going to lie, it was in the paper, and we come up with a lot of protocols, an intake protocol, a quarantine protocol. We pushed the masks, the PPEs, the personal protection equipment.
Did any of that work?
Yes, it did.
Really?
It did. So just a quick example, Tom. So if somebody came in, we still do it today to a point. It's a little bit less because the vaccinations are out. But if somebody came into our jail, we would, through the regular intake, then they would go into a 14-day quarantine specialized unit. Nobody else goes over there except the new people. We would test them. When the test came out, finally, we would test them for COVID, monitor their health through the healthcare company we contract with, and then 14 days later, they tested negative. Then we'll put them back out into the general population. Okay. It kept it down. Wasn't perfect, but it kept it down. And then we controlled it. And then if we had outbreaks over the 2 years, they were much smaller. And then we would we would designate a housing unit as a COVID positive unit, put the inmates in there, give them the extra medical care. And our staff, we made sure they were, whether it's Tyvek suits with masks and gloves, whatever they needed. I guess I can admit this on this show, we robbed Peter to pay Paul, but wherever we could find the PPEs when the days of all the stock was very difficult to find, we found it. Right. And so we made sure our staff was safe and the inmates safe. And we dealt with it, and it's under control. Once in a while we have a spike, but it's under control. But like I said, though, we had to come to work every day. Mm-hmm. The court shut down, public shut down, police officers went, and firefighters went to work. We went to work every day, and we're in the jail with 1,100 odd.
And that puts you far more at risk because you're in a very high risk population.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So when you ran for sheriff, I always like to ask incumbents this: when you ran for sheriff, now that you're sheriff, is it what you thought it was going to be when you were running? Is it everything you thought it was going to be, or is this something totally? Because most elected officials say, "No, I thought it was going to be this, and I got in and went, holy crap, it's actually something totally different."
I'm going to give you like a half an answer to that. It is what I thought it was. Being up in law enforcement all those years, I thought I knew corrections, and then I got there, and there were parts of it I didn't know, and I knew that going in. But when COVID hit, and then all the protocols, and then court shutting down, and what do we do, and how do we communicate with the inmates? How do the inmates communicate with their lawyers? Because we couldn't have people coming in the jail. That's the part that was surprising to me as sheriff. But we rolled up our sleeves. We have a great team, and we adapted. We took advantage of technology. We went out and gave each inmate a tablet so they could communicate with their attorneys, because the courts were still going to a point, but a lot of it was video court
Right.
now, so we had to enhance that, so we're not taking the inmates out. But
Now that it's over, did you take the tablets back?
no, we didn't. We didn't because
about that?
it solves a problem, and that's a great question. It solves a problem with inmate mail and smuggling of contraband into our facility,
I never thought of that.
and that's why we did it. Again,
So they get email instead of regular mail, and they can't sneak something into the letter or dip it in something.
It's not unusual if somebody would just send a letter to an inmate and they would put contraband inside the envelope,
Right.
and then we do have a right to search, but you can't search all the email, all the mail. So now it goes to an outside company. They open it, they secure any contraband, and then they now text or send the mail electronically.
Scan it,
Scan and send it. So now it's in the tablet. So that we stop that contraband.
That's
coming in the jail.
ingenious.
That's the best part about that.
I'm learning all kinds of stuff, and he's only been here a minute and a half. I love this. So let's get to a tough topic. I get a lot of complaints on a regular basis, at least 2 or 3 a week, from people in Lawrence who say when someone goes to prison, someone goes to jail in Essex County, and then they get out, they're dropped off in Lawrence. A van pulls up. This is what I'm told constantly from people in Lawrence. A van pulls up, they get out, they just start wandering the streets. And the people in Lawrence who complain to me are mostly elected officials. They're like, well, what the hell is this? We're trying to clean the city up, and then we pull over on Essex Street, and a van pulls up, and 5 guys get out and start wandering the street because they just got out of prison. And there should be someplace else for them to go. So I said, well, when I have the sheriff in, I'm going to ask him about that.
Great question. Leads me into one of our newer programs too. But anyway, 34 cities and towns in Essex County, and we have inmates from them all. And they go back to those cities and towns because the average stay in our jail, our House of Corrections, is only 9 months. So we have a big transient population. So when they come out, we always look for where, first of all, if they have a substance use disorder or a mental illness, we look for a halfway house. We look for some place to take whatever we're doing for treatment inside the facility, take them to a halfway house and get them some more treatment out in the community. So they're outside of our thing and they've got a place to go. If they don't, and then, we try to reunite them with family or wherever they can go so they have a roof over their head, maybe get a couple meals on the table each day. But those that don't have an address, that's a problem. Where do we drop them off? They're out of our custody. We no longer have a legal authority to keep them in custody. So we might drop them off at the court. We might drop them off at a location, maybe at the police department.
Could you do it like Kansas?
I'd probably
Just drive them out to Kansas
I
and leave them there?
guarantee you I wouldn't get reelected if I did that.
I don't know. I think the people of Lawrence might be really happy if you did it that way.
But the new thing we have now is our reentry program. We opened up a new facility here in Lawrence as well as in Lynn, the Supporting Transition and Reentry program, STAR program. We love acronyms. So now STAR is a place where these guys, it's not residential, but it is, they can go back to our STAR programs, even if they're outside the court system, if they need help with education or treatment or mental illness, whatever it is. And we have staff in there that we contract with who can provide those services. And we also have some grants through the Volunteers of America, another partner, to pay for some transitional housing. And we also try to tie that into employment. It really is public safety. And I know you're a big public safety guy. So what can we do as the sheriff to make Lawrence and the other 33 cities and towns safer for all the residents? And that's the best we can do. But I would throw back at the elected officials, raise that question. What would you like us to do with them? Where would you like us to take them? Because they have rights too. We have to admit that.
Sure.
So we do the best we can, but we're trying to provide those alternatives so they're not going back and living on the streets or not going back to life of crime. We're trying to find someplace for
How
them.
much housing does the Essex County Sheriff's Department own? I know there's a lot of housing. I know you've got a lot of halfway houses. You got one in Salisbury. You got one in Newbury. No? Am I right with that?
Years ago, they had a lot. Years ago. Right now, we have the Middleton facility. It was built in the early 90s for about 550 people. Our population today is about 1,150, and pre-COVID, we were just shy of 1,500. That's the main facility. Then we have the farm here in Lawrence, our pre-release center. That can hold up to about 300. There's no walls. There's no barbed wire. It's the honor system.
Yeah, it's like a campus.
It's like a campus.
Yeah.
It's pre-release. They're getting ready to go back out. That can hold up to ballpark 300. The numbers today are probably 75 ish. We have a small women's facility in Salisbury called the Women in Transition Center. That's got 24 beds there. And that's really it. We don't own any other halfway houses. We do contract one with one place in Lawrence, a ladder house, And then the rest of them, we really refer to, I don't know if they're nonprofits or whatever, but other privately owned, not owned by the Sheriff's Department, other state facilities, halfway houses through some of our medical partners and our treatment partners who will just take these folks and then try to continue the services that they might
If
need.
the legislature said to you tomorrow, look, we've got this $1 billion, whatever it is, surplus that they have in the budget. I mean, it's so outrageous, I don't even know what the number is. But if they said to you, you know what, we've got all this extra money, we'd like to give you an extra $30 million. What do you do with it?
Build me a new facility. If it wasn't for duct tape and bubble gum, our facility here in Middleton would be falling down. Really? Built in the early 90s. Remember Salem Jail? I'm a little older than you, Tom, but I mean, that place was a court order to be shut down. They bought Middleton. It was a prefab facility, really destined for a southern climate. Put it up a hill in New England with the New England weather, and it's fallen apart. And, I said 1,150 inmates. That was built for 550. The sheriff then double bunked it just to get to 1,100. But it needs repairs, and we're always in there trying to repair it, but you can only polish a sneaker so far.
Right.
You got to put some money into it. And that, the addition to a second answer to your question, if I had my druthers, I would just take some of that money and put it into prevention programs in the community, because this is crazy with everything.
I really hate that answer. Let me tell you why.
Shoot.
With all the love there is, I have never seen a metric that shows that any kind of prevention, whether it's anti-bullying, whether it's anti-drug, I've never seen a metric or a measure that shows that any money that's spent on any preventative anything has reaped the results of the money that was spent.
I would counter with that. When I was chief of police in Lynn, we created a behavioral health unit because we kind of saw. Let me back up. I think any police officer with his or her assault knows the good guys and the bad guys on their patrol route. Mm-hmm. That's your job. You should do that. So when we're in Lynn, we have a lot of, we'll call them repeat offenders, with suffering from whatever it is. And believe me, I am not an ultra-liberal. You know me well enough for that part of it. So we created this behavioral health unit. We hired 2 clinicians and a caseworker, embedded them in the police department, and they got to know the officers. So the officers say they see Kevin Coppinger on their route and he's acting out, he's off his medication. They would go out and they would grab Kevin Coppinger, take him to his doctor, get him leveled out. We saw results. We saw incidents with Kevin Coppinger reduce.
Right.
It's always tough. You really can't count what you prevent.
Right.
I'm not saying it's a perfect answer, because I don't totally disagree with the opposition on this one, but it's something we can do, because other than that, they get locked up and they're in my facility. What am I going to do with them? Because they really don't belong there sometimes.
Right. So one of the big things that you talked about when you ran and then when you came back after you won was the addiction problem. And we all know that when someone goes to prison, they shouldn't have access to drugs, but we all know that when they go to prison, they do have access to drugs somehow.
Yeah.
How are you now? Are you handling it any differently now than when you first got elected? The way you're dealing with substance abuse, the way you're dealing with, especially homelessness. If you arrest a homeless person, put them in prison, when you let them out, they're just going to go back to the same environment and do it again.
Yeah. The whole concept now. Years and years ago was lock them up, throw away the key. And it worked for a while.
And I'm still a big fan of that.
A lot of people are.
Yeah,
a lot of people are. And my position is there's a time and a place for that. There are people in our jail, because we're a jail and a house of correction. I've got some of the people charged with the most heinous crimes in the world. I've got about 45, 46 murder suspects sitting in Middleton waiting for trial. I've got over 400 inmates that are charged with like the Part 1 crimes, which are the heavy crimes, the murder, the assault with intent to murder, the child rape, the armed robbers, all the heavy crimes. They're in there, and a lot of them don't want anything to do with us. They're just, that's it. And then we will offer them services, but the old saying is you can bring a horse to water, you can't make them drink.
Right.
So that's there. And then we have the folks in there with this low-level crimes, maybe simple possession of drugs or a multiple offense drunk driving or disorderly conduct. That stuff that they're in there. And a lot of that is caused by the substance abuse issue. So how do you deal with it? So now we try to address that through some of the partners we come in. So it's clinical training. It's trying to change their brain, which is tough. It is tough to do. And we also got into medication-assisted treatment with methadone, Suboxone, Subutex, and Vivitrol, which is the new buzzwords. But we started that in 2018, and it's the same thing. It's not the best solution in the world, but it is a solution. And when we see people in the jail from all walks of life, we offer it. And if they want to do it, we will encourage them to do it. But you can't make a horse drink the water if they don't.
Can you explain to people, because I think most people don't know, and even though I've been in law enforcement for a long time, sometimes I forget, the difference between jail and prison?
Yeah. Jail it's pretrial. You're waiting trial. You have not gone in front of a judge or a jury. You have not pled out.
So you haven't been convicted of anything?
You haven't been convicted of anything. But a judge deemed you a threat to society, so they either put a bail on you or put no bail, means you're held anyway. House of correction means you've been sentenced to a term of maximum 2.5 years in a county jail like we have here. Anything over 2.5 years, you go to the State Department of Corrections.
So then you go to prison. And that's for long
That's
term.
a prison. That's
so
for
anything
long-term.
more than 2 years, anything less than 2 years, you take them.
2.5.
Or 2.5. And then anything over 2.5, they go to a state prison.
Correct.
And that's a totally different environment run by totally different people.
Exactly.
Right. See, I have a lot of people who ask me these kinds of questions, and sometimes I don't. I mean, I can answer the simple part, like I know the difference between prison, but I don't always know the details, and so we want people. So one of the complaints that we had during your predecessor's time as sheriff was we had a number of people who are family members of inmates who would call and say, because everybody thinks that because I'm a newspaper, they can tell me all their life stories, right? So I had a number of people for a long time calling me saying, my brother just went into prison, and I went in and I put like $100 on his account, and the sheriff's department takes a piece of that. And then when he goes in to withdraw it, they take another piece of that. So I have to deposit like $130 or $140 to get him $100 so he can use for the canteen. Is that still the case?
No, and you're talking in a gray area. Let me try to find out what you might be getting for questions. So the commissary where they put money in there, and the inmates can actually buy things. They can buy a bag of Doritos. They can buy a pair of sneakers like that. We issue the traditional jumpsuit thing, but they can buy small items like that. And then there's the phone calls, the telephone calls, which has been a hot button topic lately, and the legislature just passed a bill. So now we're going to be giving the inmates free phone calls. So when the phone calls were actually really came to light a couple of years ago, they started pushing this. We do charge a fee for that, and we have a private company that does it all. But the sheriff's departments get a commission, and that commission is we charge them 14 cents a minute. The commission for Essex County department-wide is about $600,000, but by legislative action, every dime of that $600,000, I can't go out and buy cruisers or uniforms or do some extra training. It has to go back into inmate programs. So I think a lot of the people think we take that $600,000 and it's luxury money for the sheriff to do whatever he wants. That's not true. Mm-hmm. It doesn't happen. We put it right back into programs. Now, they're just trying to get the bugs out of the new law, though, as of July 1st, we are to provide free phone calls for all the inmates. So then we're going to see how that works out because they get very expensive. And keep in mind, when we have the phone calls, it's also security concerns here because we got to make sure the inmates aren't calling previous victims of crimes or estranged spouses, et cetera, et cetera. You get the picture.
Yeah, no. One of the questions that I was asked to ask you today, if you came, do you drug test your corrections officers? And if you don't, do you think that's a good idea?
We drug test them if there's reasonable suspicion, if we believe, there's some kind of evidence to it, not probable cause, but some type of evidence. It's not a bad thing. When I was in Lynn, we had a little bit more luxury of that. If we had officers who worked in a drug unit or were in charge of the evidence room, we routinely drug tested them at the chief's direction, kind of a preemptive strike. The other way is, they do, they do have rights, but I think the process we have now, so if we have a suspicion of any odd activity or odd behavior, we can order a drug test.
So you can just order it randomly. If you have any suspicion at all, you can say, hey, we think Bill might be having a problem. We're going to order him to go do it.
Yeah, it's got to be reasonable suspicion. You got to have some case because they are unionized, and the union folks will come back. And usually we have a pretty good relationship with the union on any issues. And you talk it out and say, okay, this is why we're doing it, and we do it. And then they have the grievance process.
How prevalent has it been finding corrections officers, or even just people who work in the prison? Sometimes it's not, maybe it's a private person you have a lot of civilians that work there, right?
Yeah.
How often have you found someone to be testing positive? And then what happens if they do?
When I got there was an individual who never worked under my tenure, but he was on the books. He was out on a disability. Let's just say with the high suspicions, but he decided to retire. So I haven't, knock on wood, I'm plastic, but whatever this is, but I haven't had anybody that's been there. There was one individual, I did get a phone call from a party known to me that he thought he smelled some marijuana a while ago amongst a couple of our officers in the field, and we drug tested those. The officers were negative. So it was just, there might have been other circumstances, but we did order the drug test, and the officers were exonerated.
Maybe you guys should go to Lazy River Products and Drake it, get a bunch of cannabis there, and give it to the inmates, because I've never seen a person smoking marijuana commit any kind of violence at all. Well, they're usually guys sitting on the side watching the violence going, yeah, that looks terrible.
This isn't my idea, but I'm just going to tell you what somebody suggested to me one time.
Okay.
Is we run the farm up the street in
Yeah.
Lawrence. We about 8,000 pounds of produce every year. Someone said jokingly, tongue in cheek, "Why don't we grow marijuana in there? We'll make a fortune selling it on the market, and the inmates would be happy."
Yeah, I'm all for that. I'm all for it. Anything's gonna make somebody who's violent less violent. I'm okay with. I'm okay with that. So you've been sheriff for how long now? 4 years?
5.5.
Wow, it just goes by. So you're blinking and it just goes.
on.
How long do you want to be doing this? Like, if you get reelected, it's a 6-year term, right?
Yep.
So you get elected now, it's a 6-year term. Is this something that you want to like keep for the rest of your life until you're ready to retire, or is this like your last hurrah?
Never say never.
Okay.
So I've got one term just about under my belt. As you just said, I am running for re-election this year, and I'd love to get another term because I've done some stuff in the jail. I've made some improvements, and I want to continue those improvements. I want to kind of, as I say all the time, raise the bar in correction. Let's make it a little bit more, stronger and more serviceable. Again, public safety. Because what we do with those inmates while they're inside, and number one, keep those that are a danger to society inside, and then those that might need services that we talked about, what can we do so they don't come back to see us? But I have other stuff I'd like to do for another 6 years, and we'll figure it out the future after that.
What kind of work programs? If I've got a brother that gets arrested, he's in your facility, maybe even gets convicted, he's got to do a year and a half for whatever, and he decides he wants to join a work program because he doesn't want to sit in a cell all day.
Yep.
What are some of your work program? What are some of those jobs like?
First of all, if you're going to get into one of our work programs, the inmate has to abide by the rules and he has to have a clean disciplinary record. That's has to happen. We're not just doing this for fun and games. So we have a number of programs. We do the CTEC industry, which is Cat 5, Cat 6 cabling, fiber optic cabling, so they can work in the technology industry. ServSafe, they can work in the restaurant industry. OSHA for the construction industry. But our flagship, so to speak, is Hardscape. We partnered up it's probably 3-4 years ago now with the New England Concrete Manufacturers Association. We got a grant. We hired one of the instructors from next door in Middleton, the Essex North Shore Technical High School. He comes up here to the farm. He teaches the inmates masonry, landscaping, building pathways, walkways, landscape walls. Inmates love it because they're outside. They're mostly young guys. They like lifting block, working out in the outdoors. They teach them a trade how to build these things. And then when they get released, the landscapers, we're just hiring them like that because they have a skill.
Right.
And a lot of the other things we teach them is the same thing as just, they can go to work. And we had a great work release program for a long time. We had over 100 inmates who would go out on a daily basis to work. In general, mostly it's in the fast food service or some of the more labor industries.
So they leave the prison, they go to work, and then they have to come back by a certain time, obviously, right? Do you guys transport them?
As I say to the employers, we pick up and deliver. They will never be late.
Okay.
And if they don't work out, we will give you somebody else tomorrow.
Okay.
And for the employers, they get a break on their taxes.
Right.
for hiring
Now,
them.
so can anybody, like if I know somebody that owns like a dental office and they need somebody, can they call you and say, hey, I got a dental office in Lawrence, Dr. Benedetto calls you and he says, I could use a couple of dental assistants if you got anybody that maybe knows a little bit about that industry. Can they just call you and you can supply somebody for them if you got?
They can always call. We do thorough background checks on who's employing them and what do they need. And sometimes we have, somebody that might be a dental hygienist or something in jail just
Right.
because whatever,
Law of averages, right?
Law of averages, so you do. And then if that person is eligible for work release, we could accommodate them. But it takes time because we do, like I said, thorough backgrounds. We got to make sure we're not taking our inmates and employing them someplace that's not going to do any of us any good. So we're very cautious how we do it. But theoretically, it could happen.
What's the biggest challenge as the head administrator? I'm sure the paperwork must be unbelievable that you have to fill out, right? What is your biggest challenge as the sheriff going forward? Like, let's say you get reelected, you got 6 years now, you can put a great 6-year plan together. What is your biggest challenge?
Right now, our biggest challenge is recruitment. And I think that's in general law enforcement everywhere in the last couple of years. So we need more officers. We need correctional officers. It's not a bad job. It's not an easy job, but you can come out of second, third shift, you're making $67,000 a year and all the overtime you want. So we have to have bodies because obviously we have to keep safety in the jail.
Mm-hmm.
So first and foremost would be, we have to get more officers inside there. And to me, I'm more of a community service guy, so what can we do to help all the 34 cities and towns in the area? Now, Lawrence, we come up here all the time. In fact, they're doing a 911 memorial redo down in town, down by the Commons someplace. We're helping them out with that, with free labor, just to somehow give back to the community. But, what can we do back? Give back to the community with the inmates. I know you're familiar with our graffiti truck, so graffiti gets written up someplace. We come in and we clean it up.
Now, let me just back up. So your graffiti trucks, is this something where you paint over it, or is this one of those like companies I used to work with a company that would come in with, they had a special chemical that would just dissolve the graffiti right off the.
That's what we do.
That's what you're doing.
Municipal property, nonprofits, we can't do private property, but we'll come in and clean it up, and then usually it looks pretty good afterwards. And the inmates actually do the labor. It's under supervision of our staff out in the field.
So someone gets arrested, they get brought to your facility. What is the process? Like the judge says, okay, I'm holding you without bail. They get transported to, obviously, Middleton, I'm sure, if there's no bail. What's the process? They walk in the door, and what happens?
It's a lengthy process. First of all, they'll come in, they'll get booked in, all the pertinent information, name, date of birth, history. We do an assessment of the individual. We look at the criminal history. Why are they here? We look at their any medical issues, any mental health issues, any substance use disorders, any gang involvement, whatever. We want the big picture because we got to be very careful, first of all, where we house this person, which means how do we classify him. Mm-hmm. Then, are there any immediate medical needs? If there are, if they have a heart problem, or if they're detoxing from substance use, we'll put them up in our medical housing unit under medical care to level them off.
Do they get like methadone, Suboxone, or any of that? Do you have like that kind of treatment?
If they're coming in, if they're in a community-based medication-assisted treatment, if they're in a community-based MAT program now and they arrive at the jail today, we can automatically check that through the computer system. We will continue that. And then we will continue every day. They will get a dose of methadone, Suboxone, or Vivitrol is more of a 30-day deal. Then, if they're in 60 days prior to being released, we will induce them if they want on one of those drugs, and then they have that when they go out. Mm-hmm. So once they're in, we do that. If they haven't been vaccinated, we'll put them in their quarantine unit. Now we've kind of relaxed a little bit. If they have been vaccinated and they're showing no signs of COVID or any other illness, we'll get them into general.
Do inmates have to get vaccinated if they say I don't want the vaccine?
It's their call. So
God bless you. God bless you. Because I know
that's the constitutional right. That's not my call.
Right. Well, I mean, you would think that.
Yeah.
But there are elected officials all over this country who don't think that. Who think that because they have some kind of position of power, the Constitution doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
So, what are you looking forward to for the next 6 years? What is going to be your biggest goal for the sheriff's? Like 6 years from now, if you decide, okay, I'm done with this, I don't want to run anymore, what would you like to have accomplished?
I want to further professionalize the place. But when I got up there, one of the first things I wanted to do was training. I've always been a big advocate of police training. Mm-hmm. I did it in Lynn.
Training saves lives, no question.
Absolutely. And you can train, then you should train some more. That's always been my motto. So since my first term here, or during my first term, we ratcheted up the level of training for everybody. Every officer goes through 40 years of in-service training. Some of that used to be online. We do back in the 40 hours a year.
Oh, 40, okay.
Mandatory.
Sounded like you said 40 years. I was like, that's a long job.
Did. I apologize.
That's a long job.
Yeah. So they got to do 40 hours a year in the seats. Back then it was online. I'm not a big fan of online training. I think you're better off in the classroom with an instructor, and you're going to have some interaction. Then I went out and I brought in specialized training for every supervisory rank, sergeants and then lieutenants and captains. And we got sidetracked with COVID, but the next thing will be the assistant superintendents. Give them specialized training at supervisory levels so they can watch the staff, hold them accountable, and know what's expected of the officers and their work ethic. And it seems to be working pretty well. So I want to continue that. I have to continue to deal with the substance use and mental illness because our jail is flooded with it. Mm-hmm. And ever since...
Is it growing in the jail population, or does it seem to be diminishing?
It's like a roller coaster. It goes up and down. During COVID, everybody's worried about COVID. Everybody started to forget about the opiate epidemic that we've all been facing for decades.
Right.
And now COVID's kind of winding down. Opiates up there. But opiates have been there for years. It just got shadowed out by COVID. So, we have to just continue to provide those services. The courts, criminal justice reform in 2018 put a lot of mandates on us. So obviously we're following them to abide by the law, but the treatment for that is huge. And again, as I said right now, part of my next term would be just to continue we can do so much in the jail. Right. I think we do a really good job at that. But when they leave us, they go back to the community, and then they're back on the streets, in the shelters, in the food kitchens, or living under the bridge. And like you said, you get calls, well, why does this happen? Why are they just dropping them off? Right. We got to find a better solution, so we like to work very closely.
So a lot of the homeless that we feed on Wednesday nights on Manchester Street behind La Frutera, and I can tell you where all the spots are, where all the little tent cities are for the homeless. The vast majority of those people have just gotten out of prison or jail, or they've got warrants, so they're hiding, right? And I think that's where the frustration comes. If you took out all the people who just got out of jail and shouldn't be on the streets, warrants would have a much easier time cleaning up their homeless problem, I think, anyways. I saw on Facebook, I think a couple of years ago, that you guys put up a memorial to service dogs. Was it?
No, we have a memorial for POW MIAs.
Okay, I know I saw that. But didn't you do one for canine service search dogs? Wasn't there? Maybe that was under Cousins, maybe?
No, there's no memorial
Maybe it
there.
was-
I know we had, a dog pass away. We did a little memorial service, and obviously, all the canine guys, regardless where you work, they're a tight knit group.
Yeah.
So when dog dies, everybody kind
Anything happens with dogs, people send it to me. They know,
absolutely.
they know I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
dogs, so
Yeah.
I'm maybe
Yeah.
just remembering it wrong. Do you have a memorial for corrections officers that have lost their lives? Have you lost any corrections officers?
We lost a correctional officer last year to COVID, and he was 37 years old, father of a little 6-year-old autistic son. Great people, great family. COVID just got him in a bad way, and he passed. And we have another officer who was about the same time. He was 36. He is 36. He's still doing okay, but he's got a lot of serious long-term medical issues due to COVID. And hopefully he'll come back sometime, but he's got a long road ahead of him.
But no deaths or like long-term injuries from fights or violence. What is the? We all have an idea in our head what prisons are like. Is it like it is on the movie? In the movies, is it violence everywhere and people sneaking out of their cells and paying off guards and all that stuff you see on TV? No, it's
No,
not
and
like
I
that.
think you know me well enough. If I ever had guards getting paid off or any of that silly stuff you see on TV, I'd be
Right.
cleaning house. I
Yeah.
guarantee you. That's the bone of contention with me. I want accountability. Our motto up there is honesty, integrity, respect. That's got to be. So I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, sometimes there's fights because we had a lot of gang activity. We got a lot of different characters who don't like other characters. So it's so key where we house them. But
Is it race-based?
no, you mean the housing piece of it?
No,
or-
the gang piece.
Oh, some of it's race-based, some of it's just beliefs. There's gangs for any whatever you're interested, you
Right.
can find a gang. A lot of them are drug-driven and that type of thing. So we got to separate them. But on occasion there are fights, but we have to have a code of discipline in there. So we get on top of it pretty well. And then if they do fight, then we have to address discipline inside the institution because it's safety. It's safety for all.
Does that affect their sentence if somebody's waiting to go to trial and they get involved with some kind of violence inside the prison that they're responsible for? Does that add to their sentence when they get convicted?
If the act is serious, and we will charge them and we will bring them back to court. The problem is sometimes you get somebody there on a murder case, and we bring them back on an assault and battery case. Nothing's going to really happen but there's a lot of people that are in that are other charges. So if there's something serious or if some type of weapon is used, we will charge and bring them back to court. If it's not, through our disciplinary process, yes, the length of sentence could be modified because we do have some times where you might be able to get out early, and we can work with probation in the courts on that if we need to.
I hate to say that we've got 3 minutes left. Believe it or not, it just goes so fast because we just have so much fun here on the program. Make your final pitch. People are going to go to the polls, and they may not know that you have an opponent, but they may see the opponent's name. Make your final pitch. Why should people vote for Kevin Coppinger to be the Essex County Sheriff for the next 6 months? And please add your phone number, your email address.
Yep.
If you've got a website, we want people to donate if they want to.
Yep. In a nutshell, I've got over 35 years of experience in the law enforcement community. But remember, the Sheriff's Department is a large institution. We have over 600 employees, 200 vendors and volunteers on a regular basis. Tens of thousands of visitors come in every year. I have a budget of $78 million, and I have over 1,100 inmates. That's a lot of responsibility for a person that sits at the head of the food chain, so to speak, in the sheriff's office. You have to have some experience in order to deal with those issues and operate under those conditions, and I have that because of my years as Lynn Police with a smaller budget, but it was a $20 million budget, and I've kind of grown up to where we are with this type of facility. But the Sheriff's Department is part of law enforcement. It does provide services throughout the county to all 34 citizen towns. We support the courts. We support the local police, and as I said before, community service. But when you look at what we have inside the jail, I just want folks to remember that it's a balancing act for me and us as a team for the Sheriff's Department. We have those inmates who have committed some of the most heinous crimes that you can even think of, and they're waiting trial, but they are in our facility. And then we have those inmates with the lesser crimes, again, simple drug possession, maybe a second or third drunk driving offense. We have to find a healthy balance where some folks need some treatment, some folks need some guidance and some education. We do a lot of education programs with the Northern Essex Community College. We bring them in and they instruct the kids, I shouldn't say that, the 18 to 24-year-olds, and then if they don't complete their education in the jail, they can still enroll in Northern Essex up here, and we're working with North Shore down on the south thing. So we're giving these guys and ladies an opportunity to better themselves. We encourage them to do it, and if they do it, I think it will improve. I know it will improve public safety in the neighborhoods and in the communities. And we also take advantage of like I said, we talked a little bit about the electronic technology pieces of it too. But that's another big piece of where we're going, because we do video court. So a lot of times now we don't have to transport the inmate to the court in the van. We can do it from the house of correction or the jail, through almost like we're doing here, like a Zoom thing or a podcast, and they're live into the courtroom itself. So what I want to do, I've got a lot done. I think I have a great resume. Go to www.essexsheriffma.org. You'll learn about all the things we've done in the jail. Look at our annual reports. I started an annual report in my second year in term, and we try to be very, very transparent. There's a wealth of information on what we do in the jail and outside the jail. Our Facebook page, you go there, the Essex County Sheriff's Department Facebook page. You'll see a lot of stuff there. I am running for re-election this year. I am asking for your vote. September 6th is the primary, and as Tom said, I do have an opponent. But that's it. September 6th, one way or the other, there is no Republican in the race, so that's going to be it. I want to do another term. I think I've done some great work coming into this. I have more ideas, as we talked about, for the next term. Really, public safety is a paramount of most importance to me. I want to make our communities better. I want to see what I can do, and we're running out of time. So,
all right, Essex County Sheriff Kevin Coppinger. I have to ask you on the record before we go. What does she do for you?
She's my public information lady.
She's for your campain or for the sheriff's department?
The sheriff's department.
All right, okay, because I could use some contracts, so I'll be calling her next. I want to thank our sponsors. I want to thank JG's Ice Cream for. By the way, you could roll up, Mel, while I do this. I swear I'll try and get it done in the minute and a half of the music. JG's Ice Cream. They're not an official sponsor, but we always leave them up for free because I love their ice cream, and the Jafrida brothers are great guys. And every once in a while, randomly, I'll get an email from one of the Jafrida brothers who watched the show and saw the ad and said, you're not charging us for that. Here's an extra $300. Thanks for what you're doing. And thank you for doing that, guys, because we do it. We give you the ad for free because we love you. But the fact that you're willing to kick in something to help us out means an awful lot to me, especially because I'm broke. We want to thank McLennan Real Estate, Century 21, Lazy River Products in Drake-It, Marsan & Son Construction, EIS Investigation, Borelli's Deli, where I'm going to get my hot sausages right after the show, Tomo and Shaken Seafood down here on South Broadway in Salem, New Hampshire, Clear Path for Veterans New England, Sullivan Insurance, AFC Urgent Care, and our good friend Dave Consoli at Pleasant Valley Landscaping. He's always looking for people, so I'm going to have him call you.
Absolutely.
Because he was just telling me the other day he's looking for people.
Yeah,
so I'm gonna,
great.
Don't miss our debate, August 25th, 3:30 here in the studio. Thank you, Chrissy. Great job today. And it sounds like Melvin Taylor says we got to go home. So go home already.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.